part 2 of interview with Isadore Tadiello from East Canaan, Connecticut. Izzy, I'm going to ask you some questions now about the daily life while you were in the service. How did you stay in touch with your family when you were overseas?
Before the war, it was regular mail, and during the war, we used to write a letter, and then they would check it over, and then they would send it. It was harder for mail to come from my parents to me because of our movement and stuff like that, but it wasn't much mail handled in those days.
What was the food like?
Delicious. It was good food. Of course, being poor before the Navy and learning to eat what was given to us made the difference. There was certain foods that we had names for, but I wouldn't repeat them.
Did you get 3 meals a day while you were on board ship?
Yep, 3 meals a day.
Did you always have enough supplies, other things that you needed?
Oh, that ship was big enough we used to have 3 carloads of meat, quarter sections of animals brought aboard ship to the freezers. Big walk-in freezers. Unbelievable, the food that we had aboard that ship. Powdered milk, eggs, dried eggs, flour. Oh, it was a project to load that ship up before to maintain 650 men, and we had I'm only guessing, but another 100 personnel for the airplanes, the crews. They used to live aboard ship.
So that was in addition to the 650
Oh,
men?
sure. Yeah, the crew of the ship was 650, and then the rest of the crew, and then there was the admiral and his staff.
Did you feel any pressure or stress on the job? Well, it had to be pretty stressful at Pearl Harbor after the bombing.
Yeah, it was. We were, you know, not the same. You grew up very fast. We'd talk among ourselves of different things, but you know, it wasn't the same as a peacetime Navy. Although the ship was, like I said, it was a floating hotel. It was a beautiful ship.
Well, then, Izzy, even after Pearl Harbor, you were constantly going into all these combat zones. How did you handle the stress of the ongoing war?
Well, I think that we were more or less more or less keeping our cool, because you acted for the sake of the other guy, and the other guy would for the sake of you. You know, you keep your morale up by just talking, you know, freely. It was a situation where people would the fellas would talk about different things, you know, and different islands and what we thought of them. I've got it written in my album what I used to think of the island.
And we'll include that with your record.
The liberty.
Izzy, did you do anything special for good luck?
I used to do a lot of praying outside. We had, the ship was so big and it had a beautiful hangar. We used to have the services come to our ship more often than other ships.
What did you do for entertainment in your downtime?
Movies.
Would they have the movies right on ship?
Yes. Oh, it was in the hangar. It was a big, nice big place.
Was that only when you were in port, or was that when you were out to sea also?
Even out to sea. Yes. If you were not on watch, you could go to the movies.
Is there anything else that you did for entertainment? Did you get to see any USO shows?
We used to play ball on shore. We used to take what we call the screw eyes, unscrew them out of the deck, and the fellas that knew how to golf used to golf in those around the deck. Anything for a pastime. Played cards. There wasn't no. They had beer for us guys when we went ashore, but we used to get chits. We call them chits, where you can get one bottle, 2 bottles of beer for the time you're there. We used to, especially those islands where there was nothing on them, they used to build a little shack, and we used to go over and sit in the sun and go swimming and have a bottle of beer. The beer was lousy. I used to give mine away.
So you'd actually enjoy swimming on these beautiful
Oh
islands?
yeah, oh
after?
sure. We did all that. If we were not quarantined, the only one that we were quarantined on was New Caledonia. The rest of the islands were English possessions, you know, and of course there was some Japanese possessions which we captured, like I think that they were Japanese controlled, not wake, but in the Wita, we spoke of it before, crying out loud. Kwajalein, and wake, not wake. They had a bad battle there.
Guadalcanal,
Tarawa. Yeah, Tarawa.
Did you see any USO shows while you were overseas?
We had the actor aboard ship, and the flag, he was with the flag, with the admiral.
Really? So he came on board, and did he do a show or something?
Yeah, he was assigned. He was assigned to the admiral's staff. Oh God, I got it right at the tip of my tongue.
You'll think of it. When you think of it, tell me.
That's why, if I can get that tape, what we're talking about now is almost exactly like what I did with those fellas. They've got it as a in this northwest corner. They've got a.
We'll find it.
Yeah, they've got. They interviewed, a lot of fellows, and they've got a.
Well, when you think of it, tell me. Izzy, did you have any leave while you were overseas, or was all your leave when you were home?
Hawaii. There was no other. I had one day of liberty from Philadelphia. We drove home. We were there for a couple hours, and then we had to leave to go back to Philly.
When you were on leave in Hawaii, what did you do?
Oh, we used to go ashore, and we used to eat pineapple. We'd have maybe a few beers, and went swimming.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Boxing.
You boxed?
Yeah, a few times.
On ship?
On board ship.
Did you do that for entertainment?
They used to call it a smoker.
So what would happen? Anybody that wanted to box would just get in the ring and box?
No, there was boxers, and there was entertainment. The fellows used to dance, put on a show. Joey Brown came aboard ship with an entertaining group. Joey Brown.
Yep.
And boy, I've got the actor's name right at the tip of my tongue, and I can't say it.
You'll think of it later. Izzy, what did you think of the officers, and what did you think of your fellow sailors?
Well, I think that we had a wonderful crew. We all thought well of each other. The officers we respected very much so. Of course, there was a lot of us young fellas that, you know, it didn't take much to be respectful. I don't recall. Oh, when I had 3 months of temporary duty aboard the Seven Seas.
That's the name of the boat?
Yeah. It was a beautiful yacht that the Navy took over. It used to belong to the airline. Anyhow, it was a beautiful yacht. I went over there as acting chief. I wasn't chief yet, but I had taken examinations and I had passed it. It's all it was, a matter of changing whenever they said that I was clear for chief. But I went over there as acting chief. They were waiting for a personnel to come aboard, and I was there for 3 months. And that was between Kwajalein and Saipan.
And what was that like for that 3 months?
I was captain. I was head of all the crew that maintained the ship. That was one of the special events.
Wow.
And
how did it feel when you finally made Chief Petty Officer and then you were an officer? What did that feel like?
Well, it was, I was very proud of, because I had made it in 5 years. Generally, it would take 12 to 14 years to make it.
Now, Izzy, let's go back to where you were first, when you finished your first hitch. Were you actually discharged?
Oh, yes.
At that point, and you were at Ojai, California?
Yes.
And you were discharged. What did you immediately sign up right then, or did you go home first and then think about it?
I had so much leave. I had 3 months of leave coming. We was out in the Pacific, and naturally we didn't get our normal month's leave a year. Each year you have a month coming. So when I became discharged, they added up 3 years for what I had coming, and then there's 3 months that you can wait and decide to go back into the Navy and not lose your rate. Otherwise, if you went back in a year's time, you would lose the top rate.
You would lose the rate, and what about your rank? If you
Rate.
so you would still stay in then as a chief petty officer.
Oh yeah, as long as you did it within 3 months.
So you went
Usually.
home to Connecticut?
I came home to Connecticut. I got married. I built this house. I was living over on Browns Lane with the wife's mother. The father worked in Albany. He would come home on weekends, you know, sometime, not all the time. But
did you know immediately when you were discharged that you wanted to stay in the reserves, or did you decide that after you'd been out?
no, I decided that I was going to be in the reserves because I didn't want to lose my rate. If you were out of the Navy and then they recalled you, you wouldn't go in as your rate. So to maintain my rate, I stayed in the reserves.
Now, what were your duties as a reserve? What did you have to commit for time?
Well, commit for time. I would go to Albany usually and enlist physical, and they had their routine of making certain like an exam, but just not written. It wasn't a written exam. It was, just by word of mouth.
When you were in the reserves, how long would you sign up for?
4 years.
So you had to sign up for a 4-year hitch?
Mm-hmm.
And during that 4 years, what were your responsibilities? Because you told me earlier you did it basically from home. You didn't have to go to a base and stay there.
No, not they could have, if they needed me, they could have had me do it. And there was a couple times that they asked if I wanted to go to certain places, and I had the privilege of saying yes or no. And a couple times I said no. And there was once I forget what it was, doggone it, once, whether it was in Korea, I can't think of it, so.
So what were your duties as a reservist? What did you have to do?
Nothing at all. Just I used to live here, do my electrical work.
And just be basically on call for the Navy.
On call.
Did you have annual training that you had to do?
No, they used to have a training but you had the privilege of not having to go. You know, because there was no war or anything, you know, and it made a difference.
And how many, I know you signed up for more than one, how many years did you spend in the reserves?
16 years.
16 years in the reserves on top of the 6 years in the Navy?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. 22 years.
Izzy, were you awarded any medals or citations? I know you were.
Not actually a medal, I would say, is the Silver Star, your Purple Heart if you were wounded. You know, those are medals. What medals I've got are stations, and it was the American Theater and the Atlantic Theater, the Pacific Theater. There was the American Theater, and what happened in those theaters is the stars that you put on the bars, you know.
Uh-huh.
We had 7, I earned 7, the ship earned 13 stars altogether, but while I was aboard, we earned 7 stars.
Did you go back to school on the GI Bill at all?
No.
What did you do after you left the service? I know you got married and built this house. What did you do?
Yeah, I was doing electrical work. In fact, I was in 1960. I went on my own, electrical contractor.
Where did you learn to do the electrical work? Did you learn that in the Navy?
No, I learned that here ashore while I was home.
And so then you had your own electrical contracting business?
Mm-hmm.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the Navy?
Hmm?
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the Navy?
Hundreds of them. Yeah, there was a lot of friendships that we made. In fact, we have ships reunions and stuff like that I go when I was able to. It's been a while since I've done it, but we used to do it every year in different cities as far as Hawaii.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you stay in contact with any of your Navy buddies?
Yes, occasionally I get together with the fellas. It was more of the fellas that I met in the reserves rather than aboard ship. That it's more difficult to have buddies that were aboard ship. We were almost all gone. Each month I get a bulletin of fellows that have passed away, and it's a difficult time of life because we were all young fellows at the time of that we put the ship in commission.
Now, Izzy, I know you went on to be an electrical contractor, and how many children did you have? I know you have at least
2 boys.
2 boys, and I understand both of them served in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you set the example?
I think so. If it was an example, it was a command. You're gonna go into the Navy.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
I'm a life member to all of them, I guess.
Are you involved in any activities with any of the groups?
I'm a historian for the Pearl Harbor attack veterans.
Izzy, how did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Well, being that I survived and never was injured, it gives you a more reserved opinion of war. I think that the poor fellows that were injured and or in different conditions, they might have a different opinion. But I have an opinion, and I've repeated it very often, that every boy and girl after high school should serve 2 years in the military, not war. If there's a war going on, they would have their in the States. They wouldn't have to go and do war, because not because I was in the Navy, but because it teaches them to live with one another. It teaches them respect and a certain amount of living with one another. You would get to know, you would get to know how to live with one another. I think it's a good rule in that manner.
How would you say that your military service affected your life?
Oh, it was one of, as bad as it was one of the important parts of my life. I learned, I studied quite a bit at my free time. I learned to live with one another. For what little schooling I had, I learned to handle men,
Izzy, you survived the very historic event of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, so you're in a very small minority of people. Knowing everything you know now about World War II and the bombing, looking back, how do you feel about Pearl Harbor and that day and you being there?
Well, I still think that the Japs did a bad thing, bombing. Of course, war is war, and if you got the opportunity to kill them all off, you do it. But I never seemed to get to the point where I hated Japanese, because I know that they do what they're told too. The soldiers and the sailors and the aviators, they did what they had to do, and of course, if they did a good job, they would be proud of what they did. But I've never, there was points of people not wanting to buy a car made from the Japanese and stuff like that. And I think that that's being small-minded, you know. People need to live depending on what, as far as dropping the bombs, the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and
Nagasaki.
Yes, that's it. You know better than I would say we took the opportunity to end the war earlier by that bombing.
Izzy, is there anything else that you'd like to add that I haven't covered in this interview?
I think you've done a pretty good job. There is things that I haven't remembered that I did in my first interview. I think that when I find that copy, you can either make a copy or have it for the archives or wherever they're going to be. I probably could get another copy from the group too, you know, if I had to.
Well, Izzy, I'd like to thank you for your service and thank you for this interview.
Oh, you're welcome.